everybody's talking like the Rockets have fallen off. Everybody's talking like, oh, they'll do what they did last year and, be great in the regular season. And they were great in the playoffs. Do we forget that they were up 3-2 on the Golden State Warriors, who everybody thinks is unbeatable, including LeBron James, thinks they're unbeatable, at least right now, until Chris Paul went down? I mean, your second best player, a Hall of Famer, one of the greatest point guards ever, goes down, or maybe you are in the finals and win the NBA championship. So one thing we've learned about James Harden and Mike D'Antoni, they will win regular season games. Harden by himself, if Chris Paul wasn't there, they're going to win over 50, probably 55. With Chris there, they can win, many more than that if they really push it. Mike D'Antoni, his system, they will win games. He has the players to fit into it. I think Carmelo Anthony, look, I'm not going to say he's what he was 7 years ago and he's going to be superb there. I think there'll be times at the end of games where he's not even on the floor and James Ennis will be there for defense or whatever. But he does give them more play in the mid-range, along with Chris Paul, that answers some of their deficiencies. If they're smart, they looked at Golden State and said, you know what? Maybe we've taken the analytics a little too far, and all we want to do is shoot threes and dunk, whereas Golden State shoots threes, has great mid-range play, great, movement, and they get backdoor layups. Now, with Chris Paul and Melo, you got two really good mid-range players, so you don't have to go 0 for 27 from three. Stop shooting threes and take some 19-footers if that's the case.
Well, okay, there's a couple of things. First, do you think they're better or worse roster-wise when you lose Mbah Moute, you lose Trevor Ariza, and you add Carmelo Anthony at this point in his career?
I like last year's roster better. Right. I will give you that. And they're going to miss Ariza and Mbah Moute. I think James Ennis can fill in a little bit of that defensively.
Yes.
I think Gerald Green, who will play more, can fill in a little bit from the three-point line. So I'm with you on the roster being more preferable last year, but I don't think it declined to the point that they're not clearly the second-best team in the league, not just the West.
No question. I mean, look, people do misremember. They just forget the fact that the Rockets were a dominant team in the regular season, the fact that the Rockets were up 3-2. We also forget that Andre Iguodala didn't play at the end of that series, and now the Warriors, we think, will have gotten better if they add DeMarcus Cousins. Look, the Melo thing makes it fascinating. He and Mike D'Antoni did not get along. Mike D'Antoni wants ball movers. He's a ball stopper. It did not get along. And you bring another scorer in to a team that has two other dominant scorers, and it didn't work last year in Oklahoma City. What makes you think it worked this year in Houston, especially when Houston had proven many of the skeptics, myself included, wrong, that they could not and would not guard anybody at the end of playoff games? That was the difference in the Rockets. It wasn't necessarily Chris Paul on offense. It was that Chris Paul had a toughness on defense. Trevor Ariza, P.J. Tucker, Clint Capella, and they could all hide from James Harden, where he would pressure the ball. You'd go by, and they'd have shot blockers everywhere, and they'd rotate. So they had proven so many of us wrong because they had evolved into this defensive, tough juggernaut that could switch and funnel you to Clint Capella. And now you got another guy who can't guard anybody on that roster, likely in their first five, in their finishing five. Look, I think they will be one of the 2 or 3 elite teams in the NBA. But I do think that they also got worse, whereas I believe the Warriors have gotten better. I think the Warriors' bench was their weakness, and, of course, their starting center was weak. And if DeMarcus Cousins is 85% of what he was before he got hurt, I think the Warriors have gotten better and the Rockets have gotten worse.
Our friend Nick Wright loves to pull up the stat, or did throughout the season, 42-3 with James Harden, Clint Capella, and CP3 last year. Do you worry still about Chris Paul's health? Do those linger? I mean, they rely so much. I mean,
only Derrick Rose has seemingly been hurt in more playoff games than Chris Paul. And I love, Chris Paul plays the way I wish I could have been able to play, right? This is not a knock on Chris Paul. It's just the facts that, and the older you get, like the end of that 4-year contract he just signed, that is not going to age well when you're already blowing hamstrings hamstrings at 33, and he's had a litany of other nicks and injuries. So, of course, like that's the hesitance is, does he get hurt? The hesitance, does Melo get hurt? Remember, Melo's last 2 years in New York, he got hurt at the end of the season. They shut it down. That's not going to get better. That's going to get worse. The one caveat I would tell you in terms of Carmelo Anthony, and I don't buy into this Carmelo, I didn't have enough time in Oklahoma City last year. Like, dude, you had training camp and 82 games. If you couldn't figure out your role by then, that's on you, right? That's not on anybody else. But he's only making $5 million. And it's different when you can cut a guy. It's different when you're not making $27 million and got another year where they have to be nice to you. Now, if Carmelo Anthony is ever going to be coached in his career and accept coaching, it's going to be right now, because this is the end of the road and his last chance at a championship.
Defensively, though, Chris, and since you are high on what the Rockets are, and I agree that they are by far the second best team in the league, but their identity was built so much, yes, Chris Paul and P.J. Tucker, but Trevor Ariza, and even Ba Mute, though he didn't contribute that much in the postseason, his attitude, his mentality, how much of a hit does this team take this season?
I'm with Doug. They're not as good as they were last year. I mean, they will miss those two guys, Ariza and Ba Mute. There's no question. But people acting like they're going to fall to the 5th seed, you know, they're going to struggle. I still think they're better than all the other teams in the league except Golden State.
And Boston.
Boston would be a good matchup. Boston's tough. Let's see what Boston looks like.
And I'll tell you a team that got better.
Back.
The Oklahoma City Thunder got better.
Well,
okay,
there are a lot of teams that got better.
But
San Antonio got better because Kawhi wasn't even there last year.
They had Dennis Schroeder as the starting point guard as their off-the-bench point guard. They got rid of Carmelo Anthony. They'll get Andre Robertson back. If Robertson comes back from that knee injury, I know he can't make any sort of shots, but unbelievable defensive presence. I think Oklahoma City is closer to Houston, way closer to Houston than they were going back to last season.
Second year of Paul George.
Yes.
He's acclimated. All right.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.